Hear the word of the Lord from Isaiah. But now, thus says the Lord, He who created you, O Jacob, He who formed you, O Israel, do not fear, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by name, you are mine. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you, and through the rivers, they shall not overwhelm you. When you walk through fire, you shall not be burned, and the flame shall not consume you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. I give Egypt as a ransom for you, Ethiopia and Seba in exchange for you. Because you are precious in my sight and honored, and I love you, I give people in return for you, nations in exchange for your life. Do not fear, for I am with you. I will bring your offspring from the east, and from the west I will gather you. I will say to the north, give them up, and to the south, do not withhold. Bring my sons from far away and my daughters from the end of the earth. Everyone who is called by my name, whom I created for my glory, whom I formed and made. This is the word of the Lord. Well, welcome. For those of you that are new to First Pres, we definitely want to extend a special welcome to you. And for those of you that are used to seeing a different person up here, thanks for being here. My name is Kayla White, and I am the music director here at First Pres, and I've been here since January, and we are just delighted to be here. When Pastor Mike asked me to do this a few weeks ago, I said, sure. If you know me at all, you know I am most comfortable behind this block of wood over here, or sitting over here. So I appreciate you being here today and allowing me to kind of share my heart with you. Many of you may not know this, but I am a pastor's kid. My father is a Baptist minister. And as a pastor's kid coming from the Baptist tradition, it's not a sermon if I haven't preached for 50 minutes and given a 10-minute altar call. So I'm going to try really hard to keep this short and not offer an altar call. So here we go. As someone who's a pastor's kid and has spent her entire life in the church, I really, really appreciate a good church joke. Yeah. I think those of you that have been raised in the church your whole life, you really get that sometimes it's really a fun thing to kind of poke fun at what goes on behind the curtain. Do you occasionally, I don't know if you do, but I occasionally run across posts on Facebook or online that have those church marquee signs, those funny church signs. And some of my favorite ones are the ones that just make you cringe. Like, I hope that's not my church. I hope that's not my church. Thankfully, I haven't seen any of that at First Presbyterian, so I feel really thankful to be a part of this church. I'm pretty sure there's an entire website dedicated to someone snapping church marquee sign photos and posting them online. And some of them are really terrible that you really hope that they do not belong to your church. I have a friend who teaches English, and it is one of her favorite things in life to post a picture of a grammatically corrected church sign. So you should just check that out if this is new information to you. Some of the ones that I saw this week as I was prepping for today, this one goes back to when the Harry Potter books came out. Jesus is the potter, not Harry. Our pastor is Irish, but there's no Blarney inside. That one's bad. This one is appropriate for our current weather. It's too hot to keep changing the sign. Sin bad, Jesus good. Details inside. And then this one, I had to throw in one that is cringeworthy. Hell, one way in, no way out. Welcome. I don't know about you, but if I saw that sign and I was a first-time visitor, I might just keep driving. There's a motto that's shared here every Sunday. I think you probably know what I'm talking about. Most often it's shared by Pastor Mike, but I've heard various iterations of it from others, even when, like today, he's not with us. Lance and I heard it for the first time when we were being asked to come visit this church. We were visiting with some friends, and they used this motto as a selling point. And it obviously worked because it got us in the door. And that first Sunday, we heard it again from the pulpit as Pastor Mike welcomed everyone. I'm sure by now you know what I'm talking about. The motto is, "We are not a perfect church full of perfect people." That is refreshing. I don't know about you, as someone that has been to a lot of churches in her life, that motto is refreshing. Before we moved back to Arkansas, my husband and I lived in Colorado for about 7 years, and the first year of our time there was spent visiting churches. We did not know a soul. We did not know any local churches. We did our best to research and visit and ask around, but every Sunday was excruciating as we visited church after church and sometimes walked out in the middle of church. Sometimes we saw the sign and kept driving. It was painful because there are a lot of catchy slogans out there to get you in the church door. Maybe they're highlighting a state-of-the-art music program or a facility or a program. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm going to be perfectly honest, I hope you don't come to this church because of the music. I think it's awesome, but if that's the reason you come every Sunday, one day it's not going to be awesome, and then you may not come back. But in a world full of catchy slogans to try to get you in the door of whatever is being sold, our phrase, "We're not a perfect church full of perfect people," is refreshingly honest and refreshingly welcome. There's a lot of freedom, I think, in acknowledging our failures. And it hopefully communicates the reality that I've found here, that you truly believe and emulate. That whoever you are, wherever you are in your life, your current relationship with God, whatever you've accomplished or not accomplished, you are welcome here. You are wanted here. There's no pretense, no hoops, hurdles, or hoopla. There's not a checklist that you have to do before we'll let you in the door to get a pew. And as far as I can tell, there's no expectation for a certain lifestyle that you have to fulfill to be a member here, to be welcomed here. You are welcomed, wanted, and there is a place for you here. I think this is so important because people need to feel like they belong. They need relationship and connection. They want to know that they are wanted. And this does not change whether we are discussing young or old, church, work, school. I'm convinced one of the scariest things in life sometimes is walking into a new situation where you're just looking for something familiar, whether it is a smiling face, if you're in a foreign country, someone who speaks your language, or the universal bathroom sign. When you see something familiar that you can grab onto, that helps immensely. And the thing that I love about our motto, it's beneficial for everybody. For the visitor, no pretense, no hoops, hurdles, or hoopla. Just come as you are. We don't have a dress code. We really don't even have a set time as we all kind of wander in somewhere around the 10 o'clock hour. For us, the congregants, I'm going to be really honest. How freeing is it to know that we don't have to have our A game on all the time in this congregation? If you've ever had the experience of being somewhere else, that's not always the case. You have to dress a certain way, look a certain way, act a certain way. Not every church is like that, but in my experience, sometimes there are churches like that, and it is freeing to know here that we acknowledge our mistakes. We acknowledge this is who we are, warts and all. I don't have to put on a show to impress you guys. You've got questions about God? Guess what? Me too. You don't have it all figured out? Nope, me either. We are not a perfect church full of perfect people. Welcome. Lance and I have been married for almost 18 years. We'll celebrate 18 years this August. And one of those things we've strived to do in our 18 years, whether we were intentionally intending to do this or not, is we are pretty honest about the fact that we don't always like each other. The story of how we met changes depending on which one of us is telling it, but the basic facts still remain the same. I was shopping in a clothing store, and he hit on me. Now, being a good Christian girl, I initially said no, but he was cute and funny, so I eventually gave him my number. And in 5 months, we were married. Not smart, as I often tell my students when they want to know the story of how we met. Not smart. With only 5 months of intel on each other, you can imagine that our marriage was a little rocky, followed by seasons of rocky. So yeah, 18 years, we've made it. And because Lance and I are pretty open about our lives, we would often share these struggles with our small group or our Sunday school or friends at church over dinner, thinking that, wow, we have made a lot of mistakes. You should hear our story. Maybe you can avoid some of the mistakes we've made, like maybe know your spouse longer than 5 months. Just one of the mistakes. We assumed that the church was always a safe place to be honest, because that's what we're told, even as little children. This is a place where you are loved and accepted. We assumed that the church was not a perfect place full of perfect people, but what ended up happening was that we really freaked some people out with our honesty. What we didn't realize was that instead of authenticity, sometimes what people want on Sunday is for you to put your best face on and keep it together for 2 hours. Our experience with this side of church is not unique. It can't be. I've heard many stories from other friends, and I'm sure many of you could share your stories as well. But thankfully, because Lance and I tend to be pretty open about our failures and mistakes, we tend to connect with others who are desperate for someone to share, to be real with, to be authentic. And so I've heard a lot of other stories that are similar, some of which include the following. I have a friend who has recently acknowledged that she is gay. Her church asked her to step down from all areas of leadership while they figure out what to do with her. I actually have several friends who fit into this category, but this one happens to be a teacher, and she's now worried about her job. She's had a lot of well-meaning parents say some pretty horrible things to her. I have another friend who is a mom of 2 older children. She never married. She had these children out of wedlock, and she works now about 4 different jobs to keep her family afloat. She is on welfare, and so every time she sees a post on Facebook by a well-meaning friend discussing how everyone abuses welfare, her heart just breaks a little bit more. I have another friend who married very young, had 2 children, and has recently left her husband because he abuses her. However, because he's the primary breadwinner, he has custody over the children, and she is trying to battle him in court so that she can see her kids. One of my closest friends back in Colorado married young, finally divorced her husband because he had serially cheated on her. And now she's in her mid-40s, single for the past 15 years, and trying to figure out who she is as God's daughter without everyone asking her on Sunday, "So who are you dating?" Another friend made one mistake at a party and got pregnant. She was working at a Christian institution and was fearful that they were going to fire her once they found out. And I have another who sits in his congregation every Sunday. He's not certain that he completely buys into everything that's said from the pulpit. He is a very spiritual person, but he has significant questions and doesn't always feel safe asking those questions in the church. All of these people are deeply religious, spiritual people who want to connect with God, with others of like faith. They want to make a difference in their community and their world. And when I visit with these people and I listen to their stories of courage and survival, I often ask myself the question, where are you going to go to church? Where are you going to find people that you feel safe with, that you feel comfortable with, that you feel accepted with? And we quickly discover in visiting with each other that all of us have struggled at one point or another to find a congregation in which we can be honest and real and find true connection and relationship. And so what happens when you have a deeply spiritual person who can't find a local congregation to be a part of? Well, you know the answer to that. I can tell you firsthand. You become disillusioned with the church. You don't mean to. You don't mean to judge the entire institution by these experiences, but that's what happens. We're human. We tend to paint with a broad brush the entire institution by our experiences. They begin to define the entire church by these terrible interactions that they've had. And the sad thing is their negative experience do not only color their opinion of the church, they begin to taint their opinion of themselves. If this place that I've been told my whole life is a place of love and acceptance and support doesn't love, accept, or support me, maybe there's something wrong with me. This is when the idea of church morphs into a checklist, a lifestyle expectation, something that we have to work to attain. If you don't do this or you do this, you can't be part of the club. But let's go back and reread what God has to say for us in our Old Testament passages about the kinds of people that He has created and the kinds of people that He chooses. Back in Psalm 139, in verse 13, "For it was you who formed my inward parts. You knit me together in my mother's womb. I praise you, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Wonderful are your works." Everyone who walks in our door is fearfully and wonderfully made. Nothing wrong with them. Formed with intent and purpose. And in the Isaiah 43 passage, "I have redeemed you. I called you by name, and you are mine. I give people in return for you, and I will give up an entire nation in exchange for your life. Everyone who is called by my name, who I created for my glory, and who I formed and made." This idea of being intentionally and wonderfully made, being so loved, wanted, and cared for, that the author uses the metaphor of trading an entire nation for your life. And this passage comes on the heels of some pretty nasty context for the Israelites. They're not great people. They have not been acting right. They have not been offering sacrifices. They have not been praying. They haven't done anything as the poster children for the Bible that they should have been doing. So it's not as if they have done anything to earn this love or this acceptance. They've not done anything right. And God still says, you are mine. I'm calling you. You are the ones that I have fearfully and wonderfully made for my glory. So I think every Sunday when Pastor Mike says, we are not a perfect church full of perfect people, I think every time someone walks into those doors, whether it's the first time or the 1,000th time, the truth is they are God's children, wonderfully and beautifully made. They have been created with a perfect purpose, and we are excited to be a part of that. And that truth should be stamped on our hearts and light up our faces in every greeting, every handshake, and every conversation as we say, you are welcome. We love you exactly as you are right now. And there is a place for you here. And at the end of the day, that's why people come back and they stay. They don't stay for great music. They don't stay for the preaching. They don't stay for the programs. Yes, that may have gotten people in the door initially, but that is not why they stay. They stay because of how we treat them and how we show the love of Christ to them. They stay because of you. Your honesty, your hospitality, your love, and your welcoming, inclusive spirit. I started with some stories, so let me finish with some stories of how you have been the love of Christ in this community. A friend, through a series of unfortunate incidents, found himself homeless, no family, not enough to even make it through the week. I sent one text to one person. I was new to this church. I only really knew one person at that time. Within a couple of days, that person had a place to live and a car full of basic necessities to get him through the week, and a new family right here. You did that. You did that. I was overwhelmed when he called me. I sent one text, and you mobilized and made this person feel welcome. Another couple had their house flood. They posted on Facebook at like 2 a.m. I don't know about you, but I'm not awake at 2 a.m. But when I woke up for church on Sunday, I saw it. And within 12 hours, you were feeding them, you were bringing them anything that they needed to clean their house and get it dry and get them back on their feet. That right there is why people want to be here. That right there makes people want to know more about what we're doing here. That is the example of Christ's love and acceptance that people are searching for. That is the church that I want to be a part of. In the fall, we're going to begin exploring how our failures and weaknesses and successes can encourage others. How learning to tell our stories can be a way to connect others to what we see God doing in our church and how to invite them into this process. And the thing that I'm excited the most about in this series is hearing how your story has encouraged someone else. And by telling our stories, I think we'll be declaring over and over again that we are not a perfect church full of perfect people. But if you are seeking a home, a place of faith, a place of love and acceptance, a place where we see your value and are excited to see how God can use you and your story, then there is a place for you here.